It is what it is.
DJ Barr.
Back to Tech Tuesday. In today's episode, we are taking a look at one of the best beginner DJ controllers out on the market today. We are taking a look at Pioneer DJ's DDJ-SB3. Let me just tell you this, I've been messing around with this little guy and I have become a fan. I am a believer, I am a firm believer that this is hands down one of the best controllers that you can get under 300 bucks. And it's a controller that I personally wish I started out with when I started DJ. Let's take a closer look at the DDJ-SB3. So here it is, the DDJ-SB3, in my opinion, one of the best beginner DJ controllers. All of the features that you'll ever need are right here on this controller. You have your 2 decks, your 2 platters, sampler pads, and a mixer, 3 band EQs, channel faders for each of your decks, 1 and 2, as well as your crossfader. Now out the box, this controller comes with Serato DJ Lite, which is Serato's entry-level DJ software. However, for only 10 extra bucks, you can move up to Serato DJ Pro, which is what I recommend every one of you watching this video do. You're not going to be able to access all the features that this controller has to offer unless you fully upgrade to that DJ Pro software. As you guys can see, some of the buttons that are found on this controller have a secondary function that can be accessed by holding the shift button. For example, the hot cue, by holding down shift, turns into a beat jump, FX fade turns into roll, pad scratch turns into slicer, and sampler turns into trans. And some of those features you're only going to be able to access on Serato DJ Pro. Now do keep in mind that that extra $10 is monthly. You can buy the software outright, which I recommend that you save up and do so. That way you'll save yourself some money because it's a one-time purchase of 130 bucks. That'll get you Serato DJ Pro for pretty much a lifetime. Keep in mind, that's not something that you need. That's more or less just a recommendation to all you guys watching this video. Let me give you guys a walkthrough so you guys have an idea of what you're getting yourself into when you purchase this controller. Let's start with our pitch faders. This is one of the compromises that you will have to make because it is an entry-level controller. The pitch faders are very small. I personally like setting my pitch fader to 16, and this very small range that you get with this is a bit hard to dial in the exact BPM that you want. For most entry-level DJs, they're probably going to be using a range of 8, which is perfect at this size, but again, I would have liked to seen a bigger pitch fader on something like this. You have pitch faders on either side. On top, you also have an effects section. Now, these are not dedicated effects. These are not effects that are built into the actual controller himself. These are software-based effects. It's pretty easy to trigger these effects. All you have to do is trigger the effect that you want. Obviously, you can't see it. You'll see them on Serato. Like, for example, my effect number 1 is a low pass filter. So if I go ahead and hit that, press play on a track, bring the volume up, bring that back. Come to think about it, that's not that bad considering that this is a software-based effect. Now, you do have additional effects. Keep in mind that you're not going to have individual controls of the intensity of each of the effects. So if you trigger 3 effects at once, you're going to do the intensity all at once. Play that back. Here in the center, we have our mixer as well as our browse controls for loading track. If you guys see my Serato there, when I roll this, I can scroll through tracks. And then when I find a song I want, I just hit the load button for either deck, and that'll load me the song that I want. It's that simple to do. You have your 3-band EQ, your highs, your mids, and your lows. Definitely need that as a starting DJ. It's a good idea to start messing with these levels, especially your lows when you're mixing. DJ 101, when you're mixing, you have your channel 1 all the way up, and then when you're bringing in the next track, you're typically cutting the bass and bringing this one down, and so on and so forth. That way you don't have the basses clashing with each other. This will give you you a bit more of a smooth mix. You also have trim controls. This is just if you want to make your tracks a little bit hotter, and what I mean by that, a little bit louder, more or less. So if you see here, if I have my trim all the way down, you can't hear anything. But if I bring my trim all the way up, now you have sound. Additionally, on the mixer, you have your headphones control. You have a low and high, as well as deck Q for decks 1 and decks 2 right there, as well as master output. Channel faders and crossfaders, nothing crazy going on here. They're standard faders. They do have a bit of resistance, which I personally like. This is something that's very common in entry-level DJ controllers. You get a bit more resistance with these. This is to get you comfortable working the faders. The crossfader is pretty nice. It does feel a little bit toyish, not gonna lie, but it does get the job done. For beginner entry-level DJs, you're more or less just going to be fading side to side. Once you start getting more advanced and you learn how to manipulate your crossfader a little bit more, then that might be time for you to step up to a more advanced pro level controller. You have your 2 jog wheels allowing you to control 2 channels. Additionally, you can control 2 additional channels, channels 3 and 4, but this is something that as a beginner DJ, you're probably not going to be using very much. Personally, I still only use 2 decks. I never used 4 decks ever in my DJ life. Actually, I'm lying. I have used a 3rd deck, but that's always been an auxiliary deck, something that you don't get on here. So if your computer fails or this mixer fails, you're kind of beat. Moving down, you do have your 2 jog wheels, and these jog wheels are actually pretty decent. Jog wheels are actually pretty impressive for a controller of this price point. They're a nice, decent size, not the largest jog wheels you can find, but they are a decent size, allowing you to do some scratching. You do have a vinyl toggle switch here, which is kind of a peculiar button because very rarely do I see guys not having this toggled to vinyl mode. When you have the vinyl mode off, essentially what you do is you make the platter just a jog wheel. So if you need to nudge the track forward or back, like I'll demonstrate here, let's get this track going. So if I spin this, it's gonna start going faster. See that? Same thing if I roll it back. And what's peculiar about it is if you have a vinyl on, you can still speed up the track by nudging it on the side. However, if you apply pressure to the top, the track will stop. So that's just essentially what the vinyl does. Always have vinyl triggered on. Get used to filling the platter and dropping it on the 1. You have your sync button to help you beat match your cue and play. These actually feel really nice. They feel a little bit more professional, like something you would find on a higher end controller. I will say they are a little bit small, but again, it's a small controller, so nothing to complain about. Moving down, you have your hot cues, which is obviously just cues for your tracks. I always have my first cue at the start of a song. Let me load up a different song here on Serato. Seems like I have 3 on this one, so if I press play. And if I move a little bit forward, so essentially hot cues, it is what it is. It's different cues on the track. When you have Serato DJ Lite, you're only going to be able to use 4. However, when you step up to DJ Pro, you will have access to all 8. Moving down the line, you have some transition effects. I actually wish that they would have named these transition effects. They're titled X Fade, which means they're effects for when you're fading in and out of tracks. So let's go ahead and give some of these a try. They're very simple. Some of these you can actually do on the controller without triggering these pads. Let's go ahead and show you. Effect number 1, kind of like a filter fading out. Effect 2, so same thing, is more of a filter, but it's a little bit more of a drawn out filter. Let's move on to number 3. That one itself is just a loop, which is, like I said, it's something that you can actually do by just triggering the loop button here. All you have to do is trigger a 1-beat loop and you can achieve that same effect. I'll show you here. See, same effect, you can do it inside the controller. Fourth one in the line is more or less just a backspin, so I'm gonna go ahead and advance in my song, press play. That actually sounds super cringe when you hear it like that. It could sound better when you do it yourself, but again, this is one of those effects that you could just do yourself, like. These effects transitions are just there to help you. They're there to give you an idea of some different transitions that you can do between tracks. And then once you've mastered pushing these buttons, I recommend that you just go ahead and try them yourself. They're not very hard to achieve on your own. Moving down to pad scratch is actually a really cool feature that I 100% endorse. I really recommend everybody trying this out. It's super awesome. I wish I had something like this when I was first starting out DJing. I would have probably became a better scratcher. Now, when it comes to pad scratch, what it does is it essentially triggers different patterns on each of your decks. Essentially, the controller is manipulating the track like you were scratching. This is cool because it gets those patterns in your head. One of the biggest things about scratching is learning the patterns. So let's go ahead and give it a try. I have my scratch samples loaded on deck number 2, and I'll just kind of show you. Now, again, these are things that you can actually do yourself within the controller. These are just here as assistance, as help to give you ideas on how exactly it is that you achieve these scratches. So let's go ahead and try number 1. So that scratch is actually pretty easy to do. It's just up, back, and let go. What I recommend you do is that you just start practicing nice and slow, up, down, and letting go. That way you get comfortable scratching. Let's go ahead and try some other ones. So as you go down the line, some of those patterns do get more complex and they are harder to achieve when you do them manually. Additionally, when you're doing these scratches, you could learn how to manipulate your crossfader. That way you get comfortable manipulating the crossfader and manipulating the platter. There are 2 skills that you must master if you want to learn how to be a turntablist DJ. Last and final feature that I want to show you guys are sampler or sound effects. Let's go ahead and trigger them. As you guys know, I do have a sound effects pack that you can download if you guys want to have these sound effects that I personally use in my mixes. I'll link them up in the card above. But the way I have it queued is I have my bombs. I have an impact slap. I also have a couple of different transition effects. That's like a white noise. I have a horn. I have a couple of different horns actually. I also have this one. I also have this tranquilizer effect. I have my name,
DJ Barr.
And last but not least, I have my siren, which I go crazy when I'm in the middle of a high energy dance set. You can trigger them at the same time. They're really responsive. These pads are actually really great. Once you upgrade to a more advanced controller, you will notice that these pads actually turn different colors. That way it's easier to identify which is which. Something which I kind of struggled with just now, just because I'm so used to seeing the colors and knowing what effect is attributed to each color. With this, it's only red, so it does make it a little bit more difficult. Nothing that you won't get used to when you use it more often, but it is what it is.
DJ Barr.
And that's pretty much it for the DDJ-SB3. This is a awesome little controller. I wish I had something like this when I was first starting out. My first controller didn't have any of these effects, didn't have any of these cool scratching features. It would just be awesome to get started on something like this. I'm actually quite impressed with this controller. Additionally, if you're already a professional DJ, DJing at a more advanced level, this is an awesome backup controller. Everything that you'll need is here. Now, there is one last point I do want to make. This controller is designed for a beginner DJ, so some of the issues that you're going to run into is when it comes to your inputs and outputs. Just like I mentioned earlier at the start of this video, there is no auxiliary, which is something that is crucial if you're a mobile DJ. You don't want to have this thing crap out on you or your computer crap out on you and you don't have an auxiliary input to run an external audio device just in case something happens. So with something like this, you're not going to get that. The only channels that you get are these here, and they can only be manipulated with the computer. You can't plug in an external source to this controller. Additionally, these are the only ports that are found on this controller. You have your USB port, your master out, which is only RCA. This can be an issue as RCAs are not meant to be run very long distances, so keep in mind you might need to get an external mixer. Lastly, one of the biggest design flaws with this controller is this microphone input and the volume control being on the back. I don't know why they didn't fit this mic volume control somewhere on the front of the unit. They opted to cheap out and put that thing in the back. What I recommend you do is that you get yourself a microphone with an on-off switch. That way you don't have to be reaching back here to mess with your microphone's level. Aside from that, at 250 bucks, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I recommend this controller for anybody looking to get started DJing this year. So there you have it. This is a super feature-packed controller, and I keep saying, I can't emphasize it enough. At only 250 bucks, you cannot go wrong with a controller like this. It's all here laid out for you. You have effects, you have performance pads, you have jog wheels. You're able to scratch and learn how to scratch on this. It's such a great little unit. If you're looking to become a DJ, this is not a bad way to get your feet wet, to get to know the basics of DJing. So don't forget that I will be giving away this controller to one of you luckier viewers out there. All you have to do is subscribe to this channel and be sure to follow me on Instagram. I'm actually thinking about keeping this one for myself and buying the winner a brand new one fresh out the box. That way they don't have to get this one that's all unboxed and everything. Please support my channel by liking this video, subscribing if you're new around here, and don't forget to turn on that bell so that you can be notified next time we do another DJ controller review video. I make a ton of DJ content here on this channel, so if you're just starting out and you're looking to learn more about DJing, you're in the right place. Subscribe. Bros, thank you so much. I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace!